My name is Amber. I'm speaking with Jay Lemann. We are going to be doing a Protect Our Oral History with Remembering When in association with the Donald. I appreciate you for coming on, and I hope you enjoy it. Okay?
Glad to be here.
I'm glad. So as you can see, I'm going to ask the questions, but if you want, and people viewing, they can check it out on the screen. So, introduce yourself and who are you married to, and tell us about your family and family history.
My name is Charles Lemann Jr. I'm 72, going to be 73. Married to the former Becky Cafera, who is a native of Donaldsonville. I am not a native of Donaldsonville. I was born in New Orleans because my mother was very sick, and she went to New Orleans for my birth. Then we came to Donaldsonville. I have two children. I have three children, two boys and a girl. Two of them live in Donaldsonville, and one lives in Geismar. All three of my grandchildren are going to Ascension Catholic at the present time. I was born in New Orleans because my mother was sick. Came back to Donaldsonville after the birth, and stayed here for 3 years. I had a brother and a sister in 50, and then in 51. I was born in 48. And my daddy contracted polio. Think that he might have picked it up in Europe during World War II. Rushed to the hospital first week of November. Rushed to Row in New Orleans, and died in the ambulance along the way. That was November 10th of 51.
Mm-hmm.
Stayed here about a year, and my mother moved our small little family to California because that's where she was originally from. My mother met my daddy during World War II out in the Mojave Desert. He was doing maneuvers to go meet Rommel in North Africa. My mother was a school teacher, and on Saturday afternoons, school teachers would have dances for the officers, and that's how they met.
Oh, okay. That's cool.
Yeah, pretty neat.
An OSO show?
And yeah, and after the war, they were married and moved to Donaldsonville, and my mother moved back in 52 to be with her mother. And my association with Donaldsonville began about 1955. My mother would send me from California. In fact, my brother and my sister also, she would send us back here to make sure that we knew our Louisiana roots and our Louisiana cousins, and came on numerous occasions along with my brother and my sister. And when I graduated from college and got through with my tour at Fort Ord, California, I came and moved permanently here. Moved here in 1970.
And you said you were Army, is that correct?
I joined the California National Guard so I wouldn't be drafted, because you were getting drafted at the time. I wanted to finish college, got that out of the way, and ended up spending over 20 years between the National Guard and the Army Reserve.
Okay. Well, I'm glad you came in to see us today. And we got a couple more slides, and we're gonna talk about a few more things, okay?
Fine.
When did you move to Donaldsonville from Cali?
1970, December of 70.
Pretty short and sweet, I like that.
I was 20, 21, 22. 22, I think. Yeah, it'd be 22. And I've been here 50 years.
It's a good little city, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a nice little city. It's changed a lot in the 50 years that I've been here.
I bet.
I can remember Railroad Avenue just bustling every single afternoon, and especially Saturday afternoons. You couldn't find a parking place. There were parking meters along Railroad Avenue to keep people moving.
I see the concrete with the pipes in it. I didn't realize that's what that was. But that makes sense.
It made a lot of sense. It got a lot of people who worked at Security Industrial mad because there wasn't enough parking for them. But it kept the merchants, at least cars for them,
Right.
spaces for them to have their customers come see them.
Oh, no doubt, because back in the day, railroad was the hot spot. I've heard people, they would drive up and down the road and just, I don't know what they were doing, but I've heard some crazy stories.
You would start on Railroad Avenue and on Saturday afternoon, and you would ride down to the Chance, and you would go through their parking lot and get a beer or a soda or whatever, and ride down Railroad Avenue, and then you would go through Lemon's Farm Supplies parking lot, and on the left-hand side of it was the Welcome Bar, and you would stop and get a drink at the Welcome Bar or a beer, and then you'd go back down Railroad Avenue
So
again.
you just keep making loops, huh?
Keep making loops and keep drinking beer.
Okay, that sounds interesting.
It was fun.
All right, let's check out the next one. What is the history of the Lemon Building and the business? If I'm not mistaken, the Lemon Building is the one over here on the corner of Mississippi and Railroad, correct?
Correct, the one that's
They're the
being
one they're
renovated
redoing?
right
Okay.
now. My great-great-grandfather, Jacob Lemann, came from Essenheim in Germany.
Essenheim?
Essenheim.
Okay,
That's in Bavaria, middle of Germany.
that helps.
Okay. Most of the Germans that came to Donaldsonville were from Alsace-Lorraine, which was on the French-German border.
Mm-hmm.
And you'll see a lot of that in the Jewish cemetery. But it came in 1836, came through the port of New Orleans as a immigrant, and migrated up the river because at the time this was called the German Coast. It's still nicknamed the German Coast. St. Charles, St. John, St. James, and a little bit of Ascension, a lot of German settlers.
I didn't know it came all the way up this high.
Well, the German names are Emil, all right? It's not a French name,
Oh, yeah.
okay? Wagasback, German name.
I know that name, but
Okay.
I did not know the etymology
So-
behind it.
A lot of Germans up this way.
Okay.
And the Kessler family from White Castle, the Sternfelds from Tankerville, a lot of Germans, and they were all Jewish.
Okay.
Every one of them, and for the most part they were peddlers. They took their carts and went from plantation to plantation and sold their goods.
Like a roving grocery store in general. Okay. That's pretty cool.
And in my family's case, the B. Lemann building that you know today
Mm-hmm.
was built in 1876. But before that, my great-great-grandfather had a little building very close to where the post office is today. But in 1836, his two sons built the building that we know on the corner of Mississippi and Railroad Avenue, and that was the B. Lemann Mercantile for over 100 years until we finally shut it down in the 80s, 1980s.
Okay, so it became more of
It sold
Store.
clothes, it sold hardware, sold groceries.
a one-stop shop
It
kind
was
of deal.
It was the original Walmart.
Oh, that's pretty interesting. At one point, I heard it was a museum. Is that correct?
In the 90s, a group of girls approached my family and wanted to use one of the rooms to make a museum for Donaldsonville, and we just readily agreed to do that and
Right.
helped him as much as we could. And there was a museum for, I don't know, 10, 15 years. People in Donaldsonville donated stuff to him, and it was kind of successful. The big problem with all museums is money.
Of course.
The parish gave them a little bit, the city gave them a little bit, but it was very difficult to keep the lights on when the donations were, extremely weak.
Right. That sounds about okay.
And even though the museum was closed, it stayed in place until the building was sold a few years ago. It was all there.
Okay. Because that was right before when all that happened. That was before I got here, so I've seen some pictures of it, and it was pretty. I think they had a horse-drawn carriage in there. They had all kind of craziness.
It was a very nice museum. It really told the history of Donaldsonville very well. Most of the things that were in there have been saved. The sheriff was gracious enough to come and get the things that were left, and he has stored them for the people of Donaldsonville or Ascension Parish if there's ever another museum that comes up.
Okay, that's good to know.
There were lots of wonderful things in the 70s.
What was your favorite item in the museum?
Maybe the horse. That horse was a paper mache horse, turn of last century. It was a display horse that you would hook up bridles and saddles to and display
really?
your wares.
Huh, that's pretty cool.
There's a wonderful story about the horse and the missing saddle. We had an employee, Mr. Lawrence Falcon, worked for us for about 50 years, and a couple of his grandchildren are still here in Donaldsonville.
I've heard that name before.
Chuck Falcon, who had a body shop, and his brother and Renard and Jerome. And one day back in the 30s, he was taking inventory of saddles, and he knew he had sold 50 saddles and was counting them for inventory at the end of the year. Or he knew he purchased 50 saddles and came up one saddle short, couldn't find out where it went. Those were the days that overseers on plantations all rode big horses so they could see over the cane crop and see what was going on with the field hands. So when Mr. Falcon stumbled about this one saddle, he sent every cane farmer a bill for a saddle. And everybody complained except for one who sent him a check and paid for the saddle.
That's pretty crazy. So he got the money for the value of a saddle, huh?
He forgot to bill somebody, and that person ended up paying his bill.
That's pretty cool. You were saying the 70s were a crazy time.
You said they were a crazy time. I said they were a very interesting time.
Okay, interesting, crazy.
Yeah.
We'll go with interesting.
Yeah. There was a lot of volume on Railroad Avenue. We didn't have shopping centers. Everybody shopped locally. Very few people drove to the interstate to go to Baton Rouge and New Orleans. They tried to stay as local as they could. And you could find everything you wanted in Donaldsonville. There were 2 or 3 appliance stores. Everybody had a mechanic. There were 3 or 4 clothing stores. There were 2 or 3 shoe stores. There was at least 2, maybe 3 auto parts stores.
Mm-hmm.
There was 3 or 4 car dealerships. It was a bustling little time.
Wow.
And there was a good employment because the plants were just coming in and starting to hire a lot of people, and the plants paid fairly well, so it really stimulated the economy a great deal.
Mm-hmm.
A great deal.
It's pretty neat. All right, let's check out our next question. What is the history of the Jewish cemetery?
The Jewish cemetery dates to about 1860.
Mm-hmm.
There's the oldest person buried in that cemetery is a little tiny girl, 2 or 3 years old.
Is the Jewish cemetery is the one on the corner of St. Patrick and Marchand, right?
St. Patrick and Marchand. And at that corner, inside the gate, is this little girl from the 1860s. That's the oldest. If you look at the markers, the stones, you see the history of South Louisiana in there. You see the Kesslers from White Castle, which are big sugar people. You see the Sternfelds from Pankerville, which are landowners and had insurance agencies and very prominent in the Jewish faith. One of the most unique things in the cemetery are the Pfizer family, seven people all in a row, all from the same family.
Mm-hmm.
5 siblings and the parents. There are a couple rabbis buried in the cemetery.
Okay.
In the 70s or maybe the 80s, there was a transient who was coming through Donaldsonville and died. And he was Jewish. His name was Don Ike. And he died and needed a place to bury him. And Gaston Hirsch was in charge of the cemetery at the time, and he donated a plot for him. Of course, we didn't have any rabbis in Donaldsonville, so a Catholic priest came into the Jewish cemetery.
So how long? I remember the Ace Hardware. It was a synagogue.
That was a synagogue.
But these were 2 different time frames.
2 different functions.
Okay.
2 different names.
Okay.
Catholic priest went in and buried Don Ike in the Jewish cemetery. You cannot bring a cross into a Jewish cemetery because they don't believe in Jesus Christ yet. All right, they're still waiting for their Savior.
Okay.
So he was one of the last people buried in there. Very few people have been buried in there in the last 20 years.
Okay.
It's very. I recommend that people go walk through it. It's a very historic cemetery, and you'll see where most of the people come from. Most of them come from Alsace-Lorraine, a very popular place to migrate from. It was on the Alsace-Lorraine was on the French-German border, so everybody spoke French or German, which made it easy to come to Donaldsonville because we're on this German coast, and there was a lot of Germans here, and then you had the Cajuns, so they got along very well because they could speak 2 languages.
Okay. And all those groups have pretty good cooking, so.
All of them.
Yeah. Okay. Anything else you'd like to add about the Jewish cemetery?
No. I'm sorry I didn't bring the list of people buried there because the names everybody would recognize.
Oh, really? They're that the common surnames?
They're common surnames in Louisiana now.
Okay.
All German names.
Okay. That's pretty neat. All right, let's check out the next question. What is your best memories of Deville or Donaldsonville?
I would guess I enjoyed the Christmas season back in the 70s.
Okay. What happened?
Well, the town was well lit up. There was carolers on the streets. The stores stayed open late on Christmas Eve. They weren't worried about shutting down at 5 o'clock to make a Christmas party. I remember many Christmas Eves, 7, 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock, and we were still wrapping gifts for people. It was just a fun period of time to do business in Donaldsonville. And all of Railroad Avenue was lit up. Everybody was wide open.
So I know, like a few years ago, before COVID, we had the Stroll Avenue.
Yeah.
And
It was very much like that.
very similar.
All those people, very much like that.
Okay, that's pretty neat. So you can kind of compare the two, and it would be probably a little bit similar enough that you can get.
Very similar. You know, now on Saturday afternoon, they're in the Solon on Railroad Avenue. You know, it's really kind of sad to see small town America disappearing. And we're not the only place, it's all across America. All across America.
If you build it, they will come. So you just gotta find stuff to get the kids out there, you know? So, okay. Do you have any other really cool memories of Deville?
I guess there's lots of them.
You can talk about this section right now. This is probably the coolest part, right? No?
No.
Little bit?
I can tell you the people of Donaldsonville are very good people.
Oh, I agree.
Very good people. They're very friendly, and I think they go out of their way to really help those in need. I've never, in my 50 years here, I've never found someone to turn you down when you needed help. You know, they're always available.
It's a good city.
Yeah, it's a good city. It's just a shame that it lacks financial stability. It's a shame that Railroad Avenue isn't populated anymore with shoppers. It's a shame to see some deterioration of the fine homes that used to be here. The migration of a lot of people to across the river has certainly been a detriment to Donaldsonville. Someone told me that Pelican Point was called Donaldsonville East. There
For
were
real?
so many people that have moved over there.
I can think of a couple.
I can think of more than a couple.
They just don't know this is the best part. The West Bank's the best bank. They just don't know.
We all like to think that.
Oh, you don't think?
We all like to think that.
Okay, that's pretty good. Let's check out our next slide. Oh, I guess that's pretty much it.
Yeah.
So what would you like to add? Come on, give us a going away thought.
I'm glad that you're doing this series of tapes. It's nice for people to know that what you've had can come again. You just need to work for it. I think there's some big renovations coming to the city of Donaldsonville. I think they're around the corner. I think once the Lemann building gets completely renovated, you're going to see people start to migrate back downtown again.
Mm-hmm.
They tell me the few empty buildings, the many empty buildings in town, there's lots of activity about buying them.
Mm-hmm.
Just have to get together on the price, and I think you're going to see some more activity. Just a few more years, and I think it might boom again. We might have to go back and put some parking meters. That would be swell.
Yeah, the only problem is I plan on going over there when the Lemann Center's built. They just better save me the best apartment.
There you go.
I've already put the bug in the ear of guys doing it. Like, hey, hook me up.
I think there are going to be some dedicated rooms to veterans.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I heard he wanted emergency service people in there
He-
and artists, so I had the hook. But now I got, okay, he's good. That's the one too?
2 hooks.
I got like 4 hooks now.
That's what I was told originally when we negotiated with them to do this
Okay.
project. I think they would also like to see some artists in there.
That's what I was told. They wanted artists and emergency services in
They
there.
would love to have artists in there. Whether you're musicians or painters, hopefully that some of the buildings on Railroad Avenue, they would have to rent to show their art.
I've
artists
seen
that-
some stuff that's in work, and there's going to be a lot of artist stuff coming up, I think. And I'm really excited to be a part of that because people call me an artist, but I don't really count myself an artist. I'm just a smart mouth. So I can't wait to see what's going to happen in the next little bit.
Give it a little time, it's gonna
Mhm.
come back.
Oh yeah. All right. Mr. Jay Lemann, I want to thank you for coming to our Remembering When.